morning and welcome to another edition of your program, Summit. Today on the program, we are looking at issues of the economy. I am Jumoke Michaels. You're welcome. And Banji is here. Banji, good morning.
Good morning, Jumoke.
Welcome to the program too.
Of course, economics and economy and politics, they almost go side by side.
Yeah.
That's why some people go to universities to read political economy. Because you can hardly divorce one from the other. So we are on the right track.
Oh, yes, we are.
We are on the right. Of course, politicians will tell you, we won elections. When we got there, we met an empty treasury. Yeah. So that's why we couldn't perform. So both excuses will be given. So both are linked, politics and economy. So today we decided to actually look at how the economy affects you. Don't let me bell the cat yet, because Jumoke will actually tell us what are you actually, what specifically.
Yes, not this morning we are looking at the International Monetary Fund advice to the federal government on the fuel subsidy removal, the reactions, the debate, and the issues arising.
Of course, the necessity and otherwise of removing the subsidy, first subsidy again. Don't forget that the last time it was removed, that's 3 years ago, 2016. And Nigerians are still asking whether it was worth it, whether there was justification for the removal of the first subsidy. Because don't forget again, not quite long after the subsidy was removed, we went into recession.
Yes.
And it lasted about almost 2 years. 18 months. So if we have to remove subsidy again, would that not be actually
going round in
circles?
Would there be a solution?
Would there be a solution?
Would there be
of course, reactions have been trailing the advice of IMF on the propriety of the removal of subsidy. What could have actually prompted the IMF boss to advise us again? Or why should advice for removal or not come from outside? Why can't we Nigerians decide for ourselves whether we need removal of subsidy or not? Of course, it's not for us to discuss.
So yes, we have someone joining us this morning who will be looking at this issue critically and then be able to bring out solutions that we could consider regarding this advice from the IMF. Also, a few days back, the fire incident at the Notre Dame Cathedral
in France.
France, yeah. That one also, it was a sorry tale. It was a sorry incident, and the president has said he's going to build it back.
It's going to be more beautiful at the end of the day.
But something about these people is that they have a lot of value. They place a lot of value on old structures. They almost, let me put it in quote, worship these structures because it dates back in time to their forefathers and how their economy and their country has evolved.
It has ancestral values to it.
So saying that he's going to build it and make it more beautiful.
And it's not just going to build it alone. There have been, tons of promises and pledges have been coming from various parts of the world. People who actually attach so much importance to the structure, to support Macron. So it's not going to be Macron. I
hope we'll be able to get to that point in our country too, when something happens and then we don't always have to.
We don't really have to wait till the structures are actually up in flames, or maybe when buildings or structures get bad before we intervene. We must always constantly review what we have. With the purpose of upgrading, making it look better. Like National Art Theatre. It's always in ruins, and nobody is actually talking about it. So there are so many examples of our national structures, monuments that are actually being forgotten by those who should actually look after it. So let's pray. We'll get there.
All right. Okay, so like we said this morning, we are looking at the IMF advice to Nigeria on removal of fuel subsidy. Stay with us, we'll go on a quick break, and then when we return, we'll have our discussion. Welcome back. It's still Summit. And like we said this morning, we are discussing the topic IMF advice on fuel subsidy removal. And joining us, we have Mr. Jide Ologun. He's an attorney at law and also public affairs analyst. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's indeed our pleasure to have you again on the program. We are not discussing legal, we are not discussing politics, we are discussing economy. But of course, it's linked to the other two. So, this issue, as a Nigerian, first and foremost, what was your initial reaction when you read about the advice from IMF boss, this Christine Lagarde, on the need for Nigeria to go back to our oil and remove the subsidy again for us to move forward?
Yeah, that advice was born out of the crisis we have in the country now, widespread poverty and obvious mismanagement of our oil and gas resources. Let's start with IMF. The International Monetary Fund came into being between 1944 and 1945 and has about 189 contributory countries. And what they try to promote around the world is vibrant economy, in terms of payments, balancing, ensuring that economies are managed in a way that you provide jobs for the people, you have economic growth and development. And I think as at 2016, the IMF was worth about $667 billion. So it's like they have a pool of resources to help countries. But beyond that, they also offer advice. And the advice that has been offered to Nigeria is that the subsidy should be removed, to regulate the sector, let the market forces determine the price, and you can transfer this subsidy to developing infrastructures that will further support the economy. So that brings us to the subsidy we're talking about. What exactly is it? In the last few years, the country has been spending about 1.4 trillion naira annually on subsidy, but not called subsidy. It is called under recovery, you see. And what leads to subsidy to start with? The fact that we are importing finished products of this, our crude oil. And I mean, for me, our focus should be on reviving the refineries we have. Out of about 700 refineries of the world, Nigeria is proud to have 4. But are they functional? They are not, because we have these raw materials in enormous abundance. But we move these raw materials out of the country to refine at the cost. We bring it back to the country at the cost. So what are we trying to achieve? And we know that I think in May 2016, a group came together led by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Pengasan was there, Lupeng, the major stakeholders, Minister of State for Petroleum. And the then price of PMS, the pump price was, I think, 86 naira to cover then, was jacked up to 145 naira to the general marketers, then 143 at NNPC stations. And the reasons given was because the exchange rate could not support the importation to make it a viable business for those who were there. At that point in time, the independent marketers were handling about 50% of it. And we were promised that the government has put in the 2016 budget policies that will cushion the impact on the people. And that move was going to revive investment in our refineries, upstream and downstream, like they use all the grammar. But here we are today. In fact, last year, the cost of importing fuel into this country was 205 naira. The report came out, but it was denied. So higher than even what we sell. And this is what accounts for all the subsidy. And yet, we spend money on turnaround maintenance, and yet we have the abundant resources. And I like to migrate it to a local description. I'm from Okakuku in Ondo State. We have cassava. So imagine that I decide not to have my cassava refinery in Okakuku. I must bring the cassava to Lagos, process in Lagos, pay those who process it in their cassava refineries, and now transport it back to my people in the village and ask them to come and buy. At what rate? So I think the advice is sound, but perhaps we should be asking questions. Why are our refineries not functioning? I mean, we have discussed the possibility of having modular refineries in all the local government areas in this country. It doesn't necessarily need to be where the raw materials are. After all, how many kilometers do we travel to refine our crude oil? So these are the several issues, and it's all about our approach to managing the economy. But by and large, the crisis we have now is produced by gross mismanagement of our resources, because we are not complaining as a country that we don't have the oil and gas. Gas is very essential in producing electricity, and we have it in abundance, and yet we don't have electricity. So I think there is an economic gap somewhere. So that advice, right now, people are responding that if you remove it, fine, it will deregulate the system. The market forces may bring the price down, like we witnessed in the telecoms environment. But given the economic hardship we have now, how are people going to cope? Because, for example, if we are in a country where electricity is constantly supplied, then I just need to care about fueling my car. And in terms of fueling my car, if we have good roads, I burn the fuel within a reasonable, space of time. But when I'm stuck in the traffic for 4 hours, in the course of a journey that shouldn't take me more than 20 minutes, so if I fill my tank, I'll be loosened there. And so all these things are connected. So if, for instance, now all I need to bother about is fuel my car, the roads are good, I won't mind. But right now, you have to fuel your car, buy fuel for generator in the home, in the office, you burn the fuel, different kinds of issues, the cost of food and things like that. And already we have, we claim that we have poverty in the land. We were described as the headquarters of poverty at the time. We didn't like it, but I mean, the reality is reflected it. So we really need to sit down as a country and ask the question, has God blessed us? And my answer is that God has over-blessed us. We have more than 40 solid minerals in this country. Recently, in fact, we are even talking about oil now, subsidy. What about the gold mismanagement in Zamfara State? The report is that about 353, whatever. You can see how illegal miners come to mine our gold. We talk of bauxite, we talk of limestone. Look at the Ajakuta rolling steel mill, a project that was concepted in 1971 under the regime of General Yakubu Gowon, retired, who was the then head of state. Today, we still cannot make a headway with that project. And then, of course, you look at China. We depend on China for our iron and ore needs. And so, it's really, the case of Nigeria is a paradox.
Yeah, this is not the first time IMF is actually coming up with warnings like this, that Nigerians need to be more proactive about our economy. And then all the times that they have brought this advice, our leaders have disregarded this advice and say there's no cause for alarm. That's the usual response. Now they keep saying there's no cause for alarm. And then another warning, or another advice rather, has just been made. Now, if we said we're talking about rising debts in the public and the private sector, and which are all pointers to our anti-growth system. Now, and then all this, because you have said a lot right now, you said quite a lot, and it looks like the problem is actually from us. And what is the consequences of avoiding this consistent advice we continue to get?
I think because there is no social justice in Nigeria, some of these recommendations may not be implemented because sometimes those who are supposed to implement them are not affected by the adverse consequences.
And then even IMF offered Nigeria an interest-free loan. I don't know if you can also talk about that.
The point is not about the loan, but the management of the loan. If we have managed our resources well, we don't need loans. Almost all the countries of the world borrow.
Of course, we are just about borrowing $1 billion for the electricity sector.
Exactly, and don't forget that I think our debt profile now is in the region of 24 trillion, from about 12.2 in 2015 or thereabout. You see, and now IMF is telling us we have a huge infrastructural deficit, but my government will tell me we have spent trillions of naira on massive infrastructure. So who do we believe? And the reality on ground is that businesses are closing down. The cost of doing business in Nigeria is huge. If we complain that we spend so much importing fish, importing food into this country, why? Because it is cheaper to import these items than it is to produce in Nigeria. An average producer, manufacturer in Nigeria is going through fire. You talk of the institutions, the bureaucracy, you talk about the supportive amenities that are not there, electricity, which is key. You know, right now, what is the cost of diesel? What, you know, all this interrelated. And we are still debating minimum wage and everything. So those, I think those who should implement are not affected. And that is a huge imbalance. As we speak now, what is the salary of an average senator? What is the salary of a minister? You know, you talk about their ESTA code when they travel. Recently, I heard the amount of money this nation loses to medical tourism, and I was amazed. You see, so where do we classify all this? So okay. we appear to have a huge gap between the mighty and the lowly, and they enjoy the taxpayers' money to cushion the impact. Why should the Ministry of Power be having budget for generator management in the place of work? Why shouldn't all the governors come together, all the National Assembly members, all the successful politicians talking at the polls to say, okay, now, let's, in the next 4 years, let's strategize, let us prioritize. The first 1 year, we must deal with the problem of power. The second year, we must deal with the problems of roads. The third year, we must deal with the problem of the health sector. The fourth year, we deal with the problems of education. If you handle this four, you will see how the economy will be energized. But I think we also wait to have promises to make to the people. Countries that are advanced have not advanced on the basis of making promises, but fulfilling their promises. If you monitor Donald Trump very well, all the promises the man has made, I think the one that is outstanding is the building of the wall between America and Mexico. And he's making a headway there. Even when the people are reluctant that, hey, you don't have to spend our money to do this. So, and that is leadership. So, and until those who are expected to implement these policies, because governance is simply expressed as the formulation and implementation of policies, are affected by the consequences. They may not be bothered. We're talking about insecurity in the country. How many mobile policemen run around with a senator in this country? From experience, I know they have about 8 mobile policemen watching over them. Okay. You see? So these are all the issues. As a people, we must come together. The basic question is, do we have resources? Yes. Are we resourceful in the management of our resources? No. Can we repent?
At that point, sir, I just want us to take a kind of a retrospective view of the previous increase, or let me say, fuel price increment over time. In 1986, when the same IMF advised the military regime of President IBB, Ibrahim Babangida, the reaction of the government was that rather than take the IMF loan or accede to the request that the subsidy be removed, government said it would rather restructure the economy such that Nigerians will not be affected by whatever economic crisis in the world. But the issue is how far or to what extent can we actually ignore the advice of IMF over time, even when we pretend that the things are well. We find that in a question of months, the same government will go back through the back door to remove the subsidy. In this case, the government has not taken a position. But what do you think? What are your anticipations? What do you anticipate from government?
I think this is an international recommendation. We have to localize it. And I think we have tried to simplify it for the government. If I were to be a major stakeholder, we may not be talking about subsidy. But what can we do to even make the subsidy disappear? How can our refineries be functioning? Are there people there who are supposed to make them function and they are crippling the system? Can we fire them? Can we run them through the criminal justice? Can we prosecute them? Because I allege a massive fraud in the oil and gas management of this country, and I can establish that anywhere, and we are denying it. You see? So you need to look at that. Then look at what happened in France. The Notre Dame got bonds, and people are contributing money that we must rebuild because they know that money will be used for that purpose. Let me ask a question. About 10 billion naira has just been recommended for IDPs in Nigeria. How many victims of these so-called internally displaced will benefit from that money? And one of the politicians was jerry enough to say he was going to give the Senate president another wife. I mean, that is the level we have descended in terms of governance. You see, I don't want to scare you, sir, with the population of those who have been displaced in this country. There's a recent report that from 2011 to 2018, 22,000 widows and 44,000 orphans were produced in Zamfara State. It's appalling, and that is a state rich in gold, bauxite, different kinds of mineral resources.
Okay, we can
so
go on
can we look at this nation and please repent in our ways, because whether we like it or not, absence of development can only breed criminality. And if you are sincere to yourself, the level of criminality in this country is massive. Even kings are apprehensive. Governors are shouting. So if Nigeria continues like this in another 5 years, I think it should be a tough one. You are talking of kidnapping. Recently, the United States of America cautioned their citizens not to visit some parts of Nigeria, basically, and Nigeria generally, because of prevalence of violence. That is not a good reputational image for my country.
You've just spoken about the billions of naira we spent in the area of medical tourism. But the same IMF has actually advised us. They know us so well that they are advising that the monies accrued from the subsidy could be invested in the area of construction of hospitals, infrastructure, and all that. But do we really need the money from subsidy?
We don't even need
invest.
Sir,
what about other areas? They said, FIRS declares huge sum of money as in its revenue yearly. How do we don't IMF is saying we have low income from tax.
The fact that IMF is advising us, and that is why I started from the basis of the function of IMF, shows we are in a crisis. We don't need the advice of IMF to develop this country. The United Nations Sustainable Goals, with 17 goals that will be evaluated in 2030, already stipulated all these things: zero hunger, decent employment, sanitation, water, friendly environment, and on and on and on. You see, in Africa, Rwanda is a beautiful case study. Rwanda survived a genocide, but today it's one of the fastest growing economies in Africa.
Growing about 7%.
And because they took a decision, they wiped off ethnicity mentality. In fact, Rwanda already has Uber blood, by which they deliver key medical materials to local environments by drone. They just launched a satellite into space to link schools in local environments to the internet because of the road and some other challenges they have. John Magufuli of Tanzania is showing us class. Ghana is showing us class. I went into a study of illegal mining in Africa. I discovered that Ghana sent Chinese illegal miners who were coming to illegally mine their gold. They sent them packing from Ghana. Recently, Ghana sent headsmen who were killing in Ghana packing. You know what I mean? And so Accra
those were not Ghanaians?
Accra.
They were Ghanaians.
Send them packing where?
From Ghana.
To where?
I don't know.
No, we need to know the solution.
I don't know where they are, but if you open your borders,
actually Ghanaians, would they be sent packing?
We are not here to discuss the headsmen today, but I can open this window to us that they are in about 14 countries of Africa. When you talk of the Sahel region, and that is why the governor of Kaduna said at the time that he traced them to their countries to pay them, not to kill Nigerians in retaliatory efforts. So they migrate, they are nomadic. But then armed robbers run everywhere. That is why we have doors in our homes. So you lock your door at night. If you leave your door open, you receive this visitor. So it's about the governance style we decide to embark on. And the point I'm making is that we have spent enough. How much have we spent on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway? I was impressed when the president of this country that I respect so much, President Muhammadu Buhari, came up to challenge a former president about billions of dollars expended on electricity. But can we not go beyond that? Can we probe? Where is the money? Where are the results of what we have expended? How much have we spent on education? The United States of America gives us about $1 billion annually on human development. Where is this money? Where is the money that was recovered from Abacha loot? Where are all this money? Recently, the excess crude account of this country, I think in November 2018, was depleted by 73% within 3 weeks because of security concern. Where is the security? I mean, we can go on and ask this question. Money spent on the turnaround maintenance of NNPC. And please, I have this to say that there are 3 classes of serious problems. The first one is about those who have problems and they don't know the solutions. Then those who have problems, they know the solutions, but they are reluctant in implementing the solutions. And those who have the problems, they know the solution and they have refused to apply the solution. I don't know the category my country runs into, but we can project into the future and ask this question. If I continue like this, what happens? And I have said it, the insecurity of one is the insecurity of all. Yeah, it's like you are traveling in the night, one of your headlamps packs off around 6 p.m. when you can still get a rewire to help you. No, let me continue with this journey. Somewhere along the line, your brake is not functioning very well. Eventually, by midnight, the second headlamp is off. You are now blaming witches and wizards. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So we need to go back. I don't want to mention the drawing board. We need to come together as a people, and the National Assembly can help us on that. We have 109 senators. We have 360 members of House of Reps that are representing constituencies of Nigeria. That are we together? Doesn't matter where you have the resources in this country. Can we come together, maximize the potentials of these resources? Nigeria, I think, by recent reckoning, has the second largest deposit of bitumen in the whole world. Why should we not have good roads in this country?
All right,
we are still flaring gas. Different kinds of. If you talk about the most brilliant brains in the world, they are in Nigeria.
And you're
but we are the academic facilities to support them.
All right, there's still so much to talk about. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're still discussing the economy, the IMF advice on fuel subsidy removal, and we still have Mr. Jide Ologun here with us in the studio. All right.
I'm aware that there have been reactions. Reactions have actually been trailing the advice. Pengasan, one of the stakeholders, Pengasan and Nupeng, have actually said the advice is poisonous, and that the federal government should not actually tread that path at all. But Ibe Kachuku, Minister of State for Petroleum, has said that even though he's yet to advise the government what position to be taken, on his own he believes that the last removal, the removal in 2016, actually did help the economy. What's your position? What's your position?
You see, the economy, so to say, is the management of resources and the businesses of the country, and the impact reflects on the welfare of the people. And the Nigerian Constitution says that the security and welfare of the people is the primary purpose of government. But if the Minister of State came out to say it helped the economy, whose economy? That should be the question. You see, I go around, I see poverty. We were classified as the headquarters of poverty, and that simply tells us our economy is bad. We claim to have come out of economic recession. We thank God. But in theory, in practice, as we sit in this studio, I challenge anybody out there to please drive between Sheraton in Ikeja and Maryland and count the number of underage and young Nigerians who are selling in the traffic. Separate them from the number of beggars we have begging there. Go through some streets in Ikeja. See those who are selling fruits on wheelbarrow, those who are probably, from the mental picture I have, sleeping now on the Okada. So, I don't know. So, I have said it earlier. I will respond by asking questions. How many ministers in Nigeria has not collected salary since assumption of office? How many ministers in Nigeria can disclose the allowances he or she has collected in the last whatever years? I mean, we can go on. How many of them have their children in Nigerian schools? How many of them can patronize the hospitals they claim to have built for the people? These are questions. So, if someone said it has helped our economy,
then before you actually go
I agree.
Can you distinguish between leakages in government and the legitimate salaries of the functionaries of government? Do they have to affect them?
Whether it is legitimate or not, the wealth of a king is seen on the subject. If we are in a society where somebody earns 29 million naira monthly by virtue of political fortune, and we are struggling to approve 30,000 naira as minimum wage, which is less than $10 in a month, we are in trouble. Bank of America recently is pushing out for $20 per hour as minimum wage. So let's assume you work for 7 hours in a day, let's assume, and you are entitled to $20 per hour. That is about how much is that in dollars? Times 1 month. I mean, what are we talking about? There is hardship in this country. We know that. You see, and that is why crime appears to be flourishing. So we really need to sit back and ask the question, have we been fair to the people? Democracy means government of the people, by the people, and for the people. People as a word shows up 3 times. And for the people is the most critical aspect. When we come out to allow some of the people and we vote for some of these people, they are supposed to give back to we the people. But I have advised the government and those who appear to be enjoying the show now to look through the window or through the door of international politics and check what is going on in Sudan. Omar al-Bashir took over the management of Sudan, I think in 1989, through a bloodless coup. and that region has been subjected into a level of poverty that forced the people out. And right now, the AU has given about 15 days ultimatum to the military intervention there to surrender to a democratic system. And why do we have a governance system? To make life great for the people. You look at what is happening in Algeria. So somewhere along the line, if people are not allowed to enjoy the dividends of their sovereignty through the ballot, their sovereignty may be expressed through violence. And we don't want that. And it's beginning to manifest. That is why you have brazen kidnappers, you have different kinds of crime going on in this country now. And I think those who are there now should please just have mercy on the people. Let's review these processes. And we are not here today to talk about brain drain and what this country is losing to countries that are same. Some countries have opened their gates to the brilliant brains to assimilate them, to help them develop their economies.
Because I want to come up with this. There's another dimension to IMF advice to Nigerian government, talking about the dissuading them from collecting this loan from China, saying that it does not conform with the Paris Club arrangement. What can you clarify a bit on that?
Yeah, we know some countries of Africa that are losing their infrastructural facilities to China because they cannot pay back. Chinese is colonizing the world economically. There's no doubt about that. But the question we should be asking is that why should we not be able to develop our country? Are we saying we don't have engineers in this country?
Everywhere.
Are we saying we don't have the money? Let me give you a simple solution. What about Sama? If we come to the point that, okay, Chinese, you are interested in Nigeria, no big deal. We give you 2 oil blocks. Tar all the roads around the coast of Nigeria on this prescription. You know, you see, even if you don't want to engage money, you can develop by barter. But what do we have in this country? And I stand to be corrected. I stand to be arrested. We have greedy people who will collect all these things, lock them up in their accounts. And that is why if you go and check, Switzerland was one of the poorest countries of the world, but now the richest, because the riches that are stolen from Africa is migrated to that region, riches that you don't need. So why don't we use these riches to develop the society? Jerry Rawlings is moving freely in Ghana, enjoying himself. If Mandela were still to be alive, you'd be walking on the street relating with people. You see, David Cameron's position did not fly during Brexit negotiation. The man resigned from office. How many Nigerians resigned from office? Because they are not creating wealth for their disengagement from office. So they will continue to be troubled by the trauma of insecurity out of office. So why don't you empower the society that you are returning to while in office?
Yeah,
I mean, that is the definition of a decent society for me. And until we come back to this narrative, it will be trouble for them and trouble for everybody.
There won't be trouble by the grace of...
No, sir. We like to pray.
We will certainly...
The insecurity in Nigeria now, what is it? I'm just saying that if we don't...
I'm taking a cue from you, sir.
You see, sir, they say you don't continue to do something in a particular way and expect a different result. And that's why I'm saying if we refuse to change, the narrative will continue. Okay. But if we repent and change, the narrative will change. Rwanda changed. They have a beautiful story now. Tanzania changed. They have beautiful narratives.
Okay, sir.
Nigeria is the greatest country in the world.
We will
Let's
change
make it reflect
towards positive things. Now, earlier on in the program, you spoke about modular refineries. I mean, talking practically about ways out of not going the way of, that is not actually towing the line of IMF. The modular refineries option, how well can we actually exploit that option? Nigerians were actually given the licenses to operate. Yet till today, it has not brought any significant improvement to the production of oil for local consumption. So would you blame that on the government too?
Yeah, because of greed. You regulate a society through your laws. All right. I don't want to mention specific brands, but let's isolate a telecoms brand, for instance, with headquarters in Lagos, and they have their mast in Akokosa local government, or West local government, Burundi local government in the north. So they spread out. Modular refineries are put to, what do we need? Crude oil. How do you move the crude oil to where you refine them? I mean, we have the before you even connect your television to the electric power supply, there is a transformer in your street that will transfer that power into your switch, the main switch, before you know. So there are possibilities, and countries of the world have achieved. But what do we have? Some people benefit more from governance failure. Because let me ask you, how much do we as Nigerians spend on generators, spend on diesel, spend on all these unnecessary things? You see, so, and these are possibilities if only we allow. And may I just offer this as a bonus? We need to discuss our unity. Because what I have seen is that this region gets there and is trying to stop one region from developing, it turns there again. No! I mean, no. We were discussing this somewhere today. We have just 36 states in Nigeria. We have 50 states in the United States of America. You see, and a state like California has no oil. But it's about the 5th largest economy in the world. Talking about knowledge economy, tourism, different kinds of things they have developed. You see, so we need to bring that culture here. Let people live. Let people be happy. Let people rejoice. We have the resources, honestly. And sir, maybe I will throw this challenge on the table here and you can solve the riddle. Can we imagine a governance exchange program by which we surrender Nigeria to the Canadian government for just 2 years, and we surrender Canada to Nigerian governance people for just 1 year, and compare the results? So it's really about the people. When you are there in office, are you there for yourself or for the people? And we are saying now that the best form of
Did you read what Professor of blessed memory, Professor Pius Adesomi, said about Canada? That the excuses we give in Nigeria for non-performance does not have a place. Those excuses don't have a place in Canada. And that's why things keep going the right direction.
Because they took a decision. Interestingly, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, a former president in this country, when he was swept off his feet, you know, by the good result of Singapore, approached Lee Kuan Yew, who translated Singapore from a third world country to first world country, that, hey, what did you do? What's the miracle? What's the magic? And the man said, no magic. That we decided to start doing the right thing and to continue to do the right thing. Lee Kuan Yew is late, but that country is moving forward. So I think we need to check the DNA of Africa, honestly. But thank God for the likes of Kagame of Rwanda and John Magufuli and, you know, countries like Ghana that are trying to show us that there is hope in Africa. And I think Nigeria will join that club.
Good.
What gives me a sound confidence and hope and spirit of joy over Nigeria is that the resources of this country, they have not been withdrawn by God. In fact, there are more we have not discovered. So I think it's just for us to wait till the right people who have the sense of development come in, and they can harness all this and ensure that the prosperity of Nigeria explodes. And that is why Nigeria cannot be ignored by any country of the world. But interestingly, they pity us. When we travel, they ask us, why is it that your country is so rich and your people are so poor? We cannot answer that question. We can only
when you talk about these resources, I begin to think that, okay, we used to have cocoa in the south.
Cocoa is still there.
That's another area you are actually delving into. Diversification of our economy.
That is the pain of alternatives.
Diversification of our economy is long overdue.
When you talk about the groundnuts,
it's long overdue.
Where are they?
That is why I focus on unity. When we allow healthy competition and you allow regions to focus on what they have, you will see the explosive prosperity, and we are closer.
On the final note, should we go the IMF way or not?
Let's develop. I mean, if we are going the IMF way, we must implement with all sincerity. But if we are not sincere, even if God comes down to make recommendations to us, it may not work. You see, so we have to decide to do the right thing. And
Jumoke, are you prepared to do the right thing all the time? That's a question for you. I have made a resolution that I will forever continue to do the right thing. And I can vouch for Jumoke too, that I will continue to do the right thing. That's been the show today. We've been talking economy And I believe you've taken one or two things from the discourse. Sincerely, thank you, sir.
Thank God
for your time.
It's Nigeria.
Yeah. And I'm very, very hopeful that things will change for the better, even in Nigeria.
Amen. All right, we'll see you again next week, Monday, for a fresh edition of the program. See you then. I'm Jumoke. Bye, girls.